Michael, what do you think about the market reaction here? So we're actually down. I will say people are treating this like it's Armageddon. We're almost at parity to where the S&P was when Trump took office back in November. So I will say I have seen, and we could say this, and then tomorrow when this podcast airs, the market could fall off a cliff and go limit down. But the market actually has been relatively orderly here, and the sell-off, obviously, crypto's down a good amount. It does surprise me that the market hasn't sold off more on this news if you were to take it at face value. So my assumption is that the market is discounting that cooler heads will prevail here. What's your read on the market?
Um, well, it's one of two things. Either they're calling his bluff. The market is calling the Trump put or the tariff put,
Yeah.
and it's not going to actually get implemented. Negotiations are going to relax these tariffs. Whatever happens isn't actually going to go through. I don't necessarily think that that's going to happen at this point. He's not one to back off. And I think having all of this attention on it just further entrenches the perspective. I think what is good is that this is all happening at once. Where I think we could have gotten into a really even tougher place would be this week it's this, next week it's that, the week after that it's this other thing, and we just kind of over the last couple of months since he started talking about this, it has felt like he's gone back and forth 2 or 3 times in terms of what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. We're delaying the implementation. It seems like there's a plan now, so like everybody knows, and it's not surprise. It was surprise yesterday, but everybody now knows. And I think the other option is it's not going to affect as much because there will be either workarounds or there will be ways of mitigating this, and there will be certain companies that take much larger hits than others. I mean, yesterday, the Restoration Hardware CEO had the live chart as this was getting announced as he was on the earnings call and didn't see what happened, and like into the mic literally goes like, "Oh
Oh
shit."
shit.
Like, everybody's surprised, right?
Yeah.
And so certain companies that are literally importing their product or their manufactured product to be sold in the US, they're going to have issues. Like Nike's down, I don't know how much percent, but they were 12 or 13% was what I saw earlier today. So maybe there is sort of like a reevaluation of like which companies are going to do well with this new construct and which ones are not. What will be really interesting is kind of like what's excised out of this. And it seems like semiconductors had a pretty clear excise from this policy. And so maybe it is something where certain companies, it like dispersion happens where certain companies aren't doing as hot, certain companies are going to be okay, but that net doesn't actually affect that much in terms of like the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq. What is unclear is what basically the retaliation could be. We are large exporters of digital services and digital products. What if those are reciprocally tariffed in the same way or gone after? That would be a much larger hit to the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. So I don't know. I mean, it is moving in real time, but I agree. I mean, the market sold off a lot, and this is definitely one of the larger single days in the last few years. But there's still so much to be uncovered. It's unclear as to what could happen.
Yeah.
And that's where I think another limit down day could be reciprocal digital services where the Mag 7 is attacked. Like if that was to happen, then that would have a much bigger effect than even what happened today.
Yeah. I saw a quote from Scott Besson, and this is one of those, DB accounts that, so I don't know if this is actually 100% accurate, but this is a Mag 7 problem, not a MAGA problem. And, to your point, oh, by the way, just on the calculation of trade deficits as well, they just did this on goods, not inclusive of services. And as you mentioned, we export services. So just another, pretty large omission here, but it also does, I think, tell you where it's one of two things, right? Either, he is just so focused, and this administration is extremely focused on kind of the common man in Main Street here above Wall Street, or this is a very clever, there's another ulterior motive here that's being hidden that this, to my mind, relatively complete story is obfuscating. So I have no idea. But I do think that, you know, a huge problem in the United States for a very long time was that we were exporting middle class jobs overseas. And I think there was a decades long psyop that that's not the case. And don't you understand comparative advantage? And, the comparative advantage people are right on a global basis, but comparative advantage doesn't mean that has to accrue to everyone equally. And it was really disproportionately hurting a large portion and voter base in America. And so, my thought on this is I don't like this. This does not benefit me. I do not like these policies. However, this is what you get. This you reap what you sow. You did not solve this problem. You gaslit this huge portion of the population. And you know what? Finally, there has to be the pressure built up and it exploded out of a valve, and it could have been any valve, but the valve happened to be populist policies and tariffs. So there you go.
Right. And I completely agree with all of that. I think, yeah, this is definitely a reshifting of Wall Street to Main Street.
Yeah.
And I guess the broader point is that reshifting isn't going to happen overnight. It's not services and it's not digital that we're talking about. It's physical products and physical manufacturing that we're talking about onshoring again, which takes time. I think for that reason alone, there's going to be, more market pain. And yeah, it's there's still so much to unravel with all of this, and the reactions. I think people are still digesting. Our trade partners are still digesting how this will work and what this will look like. I think the implementation dates are like, April 5th for some of these, April 9th for some of them. So they're coming very soon, but it'll be really interesting to see kind of what the reactions to all of this will be, because that will dictate new earnings forecasts, new revenue forecasts, like all of that has to be re-underwritten.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why the market hasn't sold off as much as people would have expected, because we still just don't know. And there's the knee-jerk reaction of like, okay, get to cash, sell, and wait. Or there's the other reaction, which is we just don't know. So, and the market's already down so much in the last, month and a half.
Yeah. Right.
You want to wait and find out more information before you make a decision like that, which could lead to further days like today.